And why do you have on gloves? Why do you have on rubber gloves? Do I need rubber gloves to hold guns? If you don't want to get it pregnant. Nah, we're doing a lot of construction in my backyard, and I fucked my hands up. They're all bloody and got dry blood and cuts and shit on there. And being that my hands may at some point become a focal point in the video, I decided I was gonna cover up all the blood and scabs and stuff with some rubber gloves. Now, one of the questions that I hear a lot is which gun should I buy? Which kind of gun should I buy? That's not a question that I can answer or that really anybody can answer but yourself. It's kind of like I'm going to compare it to buying a car. Very few people say, hey, what kind of car should I buy? And just go buy a car that somebody recommends without doing any further research, without going to test drive it. Guns are similar in that aspect, I guess. So you're going to want to test drive a few guns. And most ranges, every range I've been to at least, they offer rentals where you can rent guns and you can go put a couple hundred rounds through them. See if you like it. See if you like how it feels. Does it have too much recoil? Does it feel good in your hand? Is this a gun that you want to conceal carry? Like what do you want to do with this gun? Is it just going to stay in the house? Because that would change a few things. So definitely go to a range and definitely go shoot whatever gun it is that you're thinking about buying. Shoot it first, see how it feels. What my favorite brand of gun is, Glocks by far, but when I tell people that Glocks don't have manual safeties that lock the slide, they get kind of apprehensive. Like, hold up, I don't want to carry a gun that doesn't have a safety on it. So, just again, research. My favorite caliber is 45. I usually carry a 40 cal just because of the size. In front of me, what I have here is I have a Glock 27, which is a 40 cal subcompact, a Glock 30, which is a 45 compact. It might even be a subcompact. I think it is considered a subcompact. A High Point 9mm Taurus PT 145. It's also called a Millennium Pro, I think. And a Smith & Wesson Sigma 9mm, which out of everything on the table, this one is my favorite to shoot. All of them have their slides locked open, and their magazines removed. And that is how you can tell if a gun, just by looking at it, if a gun is unloaded and not ready to be fired. You'll see that you can see the barrel. You can see the slide locked back. And in this case, you see the magazine is removed. You can see straight through the top. So this gun is unloaded and unable to be fired. So that's something to keep in mind too when you go to ranges. Whenever you're not using your gun, whenever you set it down, have the slide locked back and the magazine removed. And what that does is that lets everyone who's walking by know that that gun is unloaded and it's safe at the moment. You'll see a lot of people, they'll just set their guns down with the magazine still in them, with the slide closed. You can't tell if that gun's loaded or not. So that's just good practice if you go to the range. Whenever you're done shooting and you want to set your gun down, make sure the slide is locked back and the magazine is removed. And that's just for everyone else's safety as well as yours. So you want to treat every gun as if it's loaded. So what I'm going to do here is slides closed. Now by looking at this, most people cannot tell whether or not this gun is loaded or not. You can't tell if there's one in the chamber. You can't tell if the magazine's even in because you can't see. So we know it's not loaded, but you want to treat every single firearm as if it is loaded. So you never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. That's like rule number one. You don't touch the trigger until you're ready to shoot. A lot of people just by habit, maybe playing with toys as kids or whatever. It's like when you hand somebody a gun, it's almost natural for their finger to go straight onto the trigger. If you look at this is how I hold my firearms. I keep my index finger resting on the frame right below the slide. I don't touch the trigger until I'm ready to fire the gun, or there's exercises you can do called dry firing where you fire the gun unloaded. But either way, until I'm ready to do that, my finger is not going on the trigger. So, like I said, I see a lot of people when you hand them a gun, that's the first place their finger goes is on the trigger. So, make that a habit. Just keep your finger off of the trigger. And I'd even go as far as to say off of the trigger guard, just because that's just too close for me. I like to keep it on the frame below the slide or on the slide like this. And again, that's just safety, basic gun safety. You don't touch the trigger. The only way a gun's going to fire for the most part is if you pull that trigger. So until you're ready to shoot, keep your finger off of it. Another thing you're going to want to think about too is you don't point a gun at anybody that you don't plan on shooting. So you don't point it. And I see a lot of people accidentally doing it, especially like if you go into a gun store and you're like, hey, I want to check out that gun. So what they'll do is they'll usually hand you the gun like this they'll lock the slide back, drop the magazine out, and they'll hand you the gun. Press the slide lock down and it releases the slide. If the magazine's in, that'll chamber around. I'll see them like doing this, looking at the sights, trying to see how it feels. And they're sitting there and they're aiming the gun past and at multiple people, even sometimes. So, what I like to do personally when someone hands me a gun and I want to look down the sights, I'll know what's around me. And if there's somebody in front of me, someone to the side of me, whatever, I'll aim the gun at the ground and I'll look at the sights, see how it feels, might even dry fire it, but it'll be aimed at the ground. And then when I go to give it back, I'll pull the slide, lock it, and give it back to whoever I got it from. You'll see one other thing too, just off the top of my head. You'll see this at the range a lot too, is when people go to lock their guns back, they'll turn the gun sideways, pull, and engage the slide lock. When you're doing this, you have lanes beside you and lanes beside you. You're essentially aiming a gun at the person next to you by doing that. So again, I like to use the ground. It's kind of awkward locking the slide here, but I use the ground. I aim the gun down at the ground. That's pretty much 3 of the most important, at least in my opinion, most important gun safety rules is 1, treat every single gun as if it's loaded. 2, keep your finger off of the trigger until you are ready, 100% ready to fire that weapon. 3, don't aim the gun at anybody, whether it's loaded or not. Don't aim it at anybody that you don't plan on shooting, including yourself. And I know that sounds kind of like stupid. Like, why would you aim a gun at yourself? Believe it or not, it's not that hard to do. So, for instance, if I have a holster, right? Let's say I'm wearing a holster and I go to pull out my weapon. I just aim the gun at myself twice in that process. So the first time was pulling it out the holster. Right now, this gun is aimed directly at my thigh. As I was bringing it up, it was aimed at my hand and then finally extended. So at this point, I could have blew my fucking leg off or my hand. Anything can happen. So in pulling it out and extending it, I aimed the gun at myself twice, essentially. So again, that's usually what you want to see is up, straight forward. But it's not that hard to aim a gun at yourself. So again, don't aim the gun at anybody that you don't plan on shooting. Don't aim the gun at yourself, period. And go to the range, get lots of practice with whatever gun you think you're going to like or whatever gun you buy. This gun right here, it's a Taurus PT 145. I'm not 100% comfortable with this gun for a few reasons. So this isn't a gun that I would carry with me. Sure, I'll take it to the range and I'll shoot it, but that's about it. So I'm gonna put a magazine in. So now this gun is loaded. And if I pull the trigger, this gun will fire. On the other side, I have a safety here on this one. Safety off, safety on, safety off, safety on. So now if I try to pull the trigger with the safety on, I shouldn't be able to, but I'm not gonna try to pull the trigger, especially with one round in the chamber. So how to clear a gun, there's a, on the left side, you'll have what's called a magazine release, and you push the button and your magazine falls out. Okay, now mind you, there's still one in the chamber. So if I drop this safety off and I pull the trigger, this gun will fire, because when I cocked it, it put one into the chamber. So in order to get that out, so this is the one that was in the chamber. I usually do it a couple of times. So now I know that this gun is empty. In order to lock the slide, right in front of the safety, there's a slide lock. So you pull back on your slide and you push that up and it locks it open. So again, good way, whenever you're at the range, just set it down like that with the slide open. Let me show you how you load your handgun. At least you're going to have your magazine. I have my ammo already in the magazine. It's a 9mm. You put your magazine into the slot, make sure it's locked in place. It'll click. So you grab the slide. It's usually serrated on most firearms, so we can grab it, pull it, let it go. So right now, this gun is cocked, ready to go. There's a round in the chamber. So if I shoot it, what's going to happen is that round's going to shoot out. The shell or the casing is going to eject through here. The slide's going to blow back and basically do what I just did. And it's going to grab another round out of the magazine. So again, that's how you load it. So to unload it, like I mentioned earlier, there's a button you push, it'll drop your magazine out. Just because the magazine's out does not mean that the gun is empty. Again, if I pull the trigger, this gun is firing because there was still a round in it. So now this gun's empty. But just to make sure, do it a couple times, or like I like to do, lock it back. So that's how you load it and unload it.